Welcome to Lesson 2.3, Invisible Stress Leaks in Leadership Roles. By now, you've mapped your high-pressure triggers and learned to distinguish between external demands and internal narratives. In this session, we shift our focus to something a little bit less obvious, but just as dangerous. The low-grade, often invisible stressors embedded in your daily work structure, leadership dynamics, or team involvement. These aren't the intense, explosive moments. These are the repetitive, quiet friction points that drain your capacity and often go unaddressed because they're normalized. We call them stress leaks, and left unchecked, they will degrade your focus, mood, and decision quality over time. A stress leak is a chronic, subtle source of tension that erodes your performance over time. These aren't headline-level problems. They're operational or emotional microstressors that quietly pull energy from your leadership team. Examples include constant role ambiguity, vague or shifting expectations, decision-making bottlenecks, lack of clarity and authority, repetitive miscommunication, team dependency without accountability. Now, none of these seem dramatic on their own, but over weeks and months, they create accumulated cognitive fatigue that you often mistake for burnout, even when really it's death by 1,000 cuts. To make the distinction clear, a stress event is a major acute situation, a crisis, a layoff, a client escalation. It spikes your nervous system. Now, a stress leak is an ongoing and mostly invisible energy drain. It drips your energy over time. The issue: most leaders know how to handle stress events, but they don't design for the leaks. And because the leaks aren't urgent, they never really get addressed. They just become part of the job. Until you're operating at 60% capacity, wondering where your edge went. Let's look at some of the most common stress leaks in executive roles. Role ambiguity. You're unclear where your authority ends and what success is truly defined by. Expectation misalignment. You think you're solving for X, but stakeholders expect Y, and no one is saying it out loud. Unowned decisions. You're stuck between cross-functional leaders who won't make a call, and you're absorbing the friction. False urgency. Everything is labeled critical, but no one is prioritizing. Emotional load carrying. You're doing unspoken morale work for the team, like calming tensions, shielding them from pressure, and motivating without recognition. Asymmetrical accountability. You're responsible for results, but the levers to influence them are out of your control. If any of these feel familiar, you're not broken. You're just operating in an unoptimized system. Here's what typically happens. You experience a small point of friction, let's say a repeated stakeholder misalignment. Instead of addressing it head on, you adapt. You work around it. You absorb the confusion. Now that becomes the norm. Now add 3 or 4 more leaks just like that. Your decision clarity declines. Your margin for creative thinking shrinks. You feel fatigued but can't point to why. This is the executive drain loop. And once it's active, you start overcompensating for system failures with personal energy. And that's not sustainable. So why do so many leaders let stress leaks persist? Because most of them are socially normalized or structurally unspoken and psychologically internalized. If anyone else is dealing with role ambiguity or broken decision flows, you tell yourself this is just how it is. But familiar doesn't mean functional. Just because something is common doesn't mean it should go unchallenged. The strongest leaders aren't the ones who tolerate broken systems the longest. They're the ones who learn to notice silent drains and fix the design. Here's your practice move. For the next 7 days, track the moment when you feel minor, persistent frustration or cognitive drag. Ask yourself, was the task unclear? Was the accountability mismatched? Did I absorb pressure that we should have been sharing with other people? Was I confused about what success looks like? You're looking for drains, not disasters. These are early signals, and once surfaced, they become solvable. Remember, stress leaks rarely announce themselves. They show up as subtle resistance to starting a task, low energy in meetings, avoidance of a particular topic, snapping at your team without clear reason. When you trace these signals back, you'll often find an invisible stressor that's gone unaddressed. And once you name it, you can start restructuring your workflow, clarify expectations, or realign roles instead of absorbing it indefinitely. Take a moment to reflect. Where are you constantly leaking energy that no one sees? What minor but repetitive stressor have you accepted as part of the job? Naming it doesn't make you fragile. It makes you a systems thinker. And that's what keeps you effective over time. In our next and final lesson of this module, we're going to look at how stress affects your behavior before you notice it, how it shapes your tone, timing, and decision making subtly but consistently. Because even if you don't feel stress, your behavior may be a different story. We'll teach you how to spot and correct those shifts early. I'll see you in lesson 2.4.